Ciconia no Naku Koro ni is the latest visual novel in the When They Cry series. The When They Cry series is known for complicated scenarios that end in pretty much all the characters dying, often gruesomely. The scenario then repeats, but it happens a bit differently each time. There's a big mystery around what's going on and whether there's any way to avoid tragedy. As the previous installment Umi Neko makes plain, you try to understand not only who is causing the events of the story and how they're doing it, but also why. What are the characters' motivations? How did they become who they are? And how does that culminate in tragic scenarios? That is the heart of the story. What is the why question in Ciconia? It can be hard to know what's happening, let alone who is causing it or why. But we're actually directly given a question as the very last thing that happens in Phase 1. Jaden, floating in clouds, says, "Hey Meow, this is the world you wished for, right? Why are you refusing it? Why is Meow refusing that world?" That's the central question of Ciconia. So why is he refusing it? And what is that world? In Chapter 18, God's Scenario, Meow first brings up the idea of having all battles take place in a virtual world. This leads right into a strange scene in the factory world where a voice describes freeing humans from their flesh. It says that this is heaven, a paradise for the soul, a world with no death, aging, sadness, or pain. In the last chapter, The Hour of the Prophecy, Meow brings this up again, and everyone talks about how nice it would be to live fully in virtual reality. Separately, in Chapter 13, Proof of a Program, Meow has a more horrific vision of the factory world. It does seem like the same world. Then there's a message saying that this is the future, but someone has already experienced it somehow? Anyway, all this taken together seems to indicate that Meow will eventually get the virtual world he asked for. Everyone will have their brains taken out and connected to a computer so that all of their sensations and interactions are virtualized. So why is Meow refusing what he asked for? The vision of the factory world is meant to be a scene of horror, and there's a message saying that Meow's #1 priority is to avoid it. So maybe he just doesn't like the path to getting the world he asked for. But here's another idea. In the other ending of Phase 1, Data Fragment 16, the Revelation of Saint Ioannis, the eponymous revelation is discussed. Sojiro and Seshat fully expect various events from this revelation to take place. In case you don't know, this is in fact the final book of the real-world Christian Bible, Revelation. A lot of crazy and confusing things are described in Revelation, but in the end, the armies of Christ defeat the armies of Satan, and a new world is created. In this new world, God says that there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. This sounds a lot like the world Meow asked for, which has also been called heaven. But not everyone gets to live in God's new world in Revelation. Instead, all the dead are risen, and they're all judged. Anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. This is basically hell, eternal torment that no one ever gets out of. Not even Satan gets to escape this. So it might just be that not only will there be a virtual heaven, but also a virtual hell. Somehow, each human is going to meet their final fate, and it might be a bad one. Now, Meow and his friends spend a lot of the story vaguely groping around trying to find some evildoers who are trying to cause war and death and generally destroy the world. Maybe these people will get sent to hell, which would be yet another success for Meow. But there's a theme in this story of having faith in the human heart. If you don't have faith in the human heart, how can you call yourself a guardian of the walls of peace? In other words, have faith that people will eventually change their minds for the better. But if they're somehow judged to be bad people and sent to hell forever, then that's it. Their fates are sealed for eternity, and it doesn't matter if they ever have a change of heart or not. This idea of eternal judgment, even for people that Meow would consider evil, flies in the face of this central theme. Maybe this is what Meow objects to, and why he refuses to partake in this virtual afterlife system. He won't give up on anybody, no matter their sins. They don't deserve to suffer forever. He has faith that they will eventually change their ways. Or, in other words, maybe he's not willing to become a blue at the expense of all the greens. Throughout the story, Meow's thoughts on this subject undergo a lot of changes. Towards the end, he's actually quite nihilistic, seeming to have little faith left in humanity. Is there any reason for all these mood swings? Well, Meow seems to be heavily manipulated by various parties all throughout the story, and many people agree he's a central figure in vague ways that Meow himself doesn't even understand. Is somebody trying to make Meow feel one way or another about humanity? How are they doing so, and why? Does this have some grand impact on the fate of the world? Can it cause the scenario of the world to reset, then loop again in a slightly different way, in classic When They Cry fashion? These are the big questions when thinking about Ciconia. I'll keep digging into all those questions and more in other videos.